What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That is David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, all that good stuff, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald so you can stay updated on the latest news in South Florida. So the Miami Dolphins improved to 8-3 last Sunday with a 30-15 win over the Houston Texans. Came back from the bye. Yep, smacked them around. At least for the first half, they were up 30-0 at halftime. Kind of let their foot up off the gas a little bit. Tua was taking out the game after two drives in the second half, but they ultimately come away with the win in a game that they were expected to win. It took care of business after the bye, and now they moved on, and now they're moving on to the part of the schedule that we've all been looking forward to. I mean, months and months ago when the schedule first came out, we were looking at this schedule, this part of the schedule, and we said this is this is a stretch that will decide the Dolphins season. I mean, they're already in really good position to make the playoffs for the first time since 2016. But if they can get through this December stretch with maybe a winning record, 500, take care of business on this road stretch, they can really cement their status as contenders and as a playoff team this season. And it begins this upcoming Sunday in San Francisco. Mike McDaniel makes his big return to face Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo, and the 49ers. There's already been some back and forth on social media with Raheem Mostert, Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert clearing up some comments he made to a reporter about the two offenses and Jimmy Garoppolo and whatnot. So I mean, hey, Mike McDaniel said he didn't want this game to be about him. He said, we're just trying to face a good team. But there's a lot of storylines and narratives at play for this reunion of sorts. But we're gonna start with last Sunday's game. As I said, the Dolphins beating the Texans 30-15. I mean, at halftime, I'm not gonna lie, 2 plays in, the Texans ran 2 runs up the middle. They went nowhere. That they kind of waved the white flag, if you're asking me. The Dolphins were up 30-0 at halftime. Their biggest halftime advantage since 2015. I believe they were up 41-0 or something like that. But I mean, it wasn't a game that they left unscathed. However, toward the end of the first half, left tackle Terron Armstead left with a pectoral injury that was later reported by NFL Network to be a grade 2 strain, which is a partial tear. His availability for Sunday's game is honestly in doubt, not even just in question, but in doubt. The report said that he was expected to miss some time. Mike McDaniel didn't give a timetable, but said, they're working on treatment options. But not only did Terron Armstead lead the game, right tackle Austin Jackson, playing for the first time since week 1, he sustained an ankle injury, the same exact ankle that kept him out for several weeks on IR. It looks like his availability is in question. So you enter a pivotal game against the 49ers with, the status of your 2 offensive tackles in doubt. I mean, that's not a recipe for success. But again, we're going to start with that Texans game. Did you leave yourself more impressed with the way they came out in the first half, or kind of scratching your head and a little bit concerned about the second half?
It was about the first half. I mean, it was what the Dolphins came out and did did what they were supposed to do. They jumped on the Texans, got them down early, pounded them, got up, going to halftime up 30-0. Do you honestly think in the second half that either team came out with the intensity they did in the first half? No,
I think the Texans did. I mean, the Texans put together some scoring drives
because the Texans, the Texans suck. So
they do stink, but they had 3 straight scoring drives. They made it 30-15 with about 9 minutes left, and they were punting back. I mean, Dolphins defense had to make some plays to effectively seal that game because they had to make some plays.
They had reached. We got to that stage of an NFL game, an NFL route, and this happens during NFL routes. I'm sure you covered them. I know I covered them where, like, both teams kind of know what the deal is. And now, there's just a drop of intensity, and I think the Dolphins experienced it and just never kind of got back to it. Until they were like, oh, wait a minute, oh, what they're oh, it's 30-15. Oh, we gotta do something about this. All right, let's, and then, they again did what they needed to do to get to walk out of there with the win. But I theoretically the game was in doubt. I mean, 2-score game, 9 minutes left. In reality, that game was not in doubt. That game wasn't in doubt. And, credit to the Dolphins for doing what they needed to do. And now the good part, it's supposed to be the good part about, going up 30-zip at halftime is usually you can pull your starters and everybody goes, everybody's sitting on the sidelines talking about post-game plans and everybody's healthy, going in to face, Jimmy G, Debo, whichever Bosa's out there. And you get one Bosa 1 week, one Bosa the next week. And, that's supposed to be the upside. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. They suffered a couple of injuries that might be problematic, very problematic, coming into this week, especially. So, after 30-0, that's not a film I'm putting. That's not something a film I'm really basing a lot of extended analysis on. The game was in the first half, and that was how different these teams are. The Texans are not 15 points worse than the Dolphins. They are 30 points worse than the Dolphins, and they are 15 points worse than like a middle pack team in the NFL. So yeah, the most disheartening thing are the injuries, because you want to get out of a game like that just healthy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, and I wrote about it in my Dolphins film study that went up on Tuesday. So check that out if you haven't. I was impressed that the Dolphins quickly jumped out against an inferior team, and we saw that even if they were a little bit rusty, like they punted for the first time in 3 weeks. The timing of the passing offense just was a little offbeat. They were still able to move the ball and take care of business. But I got to say, when Terron Armstead left that game, a lot changed. I mean, we talked a lot. We remember when he's been battling the toe injury all season. And this was the first time, I believe, all season that he didn't enter the game. He didn't go into Sunday with the game status. I mean, he was one of the guys that he didn't have a game status. Like there was no question whether he was going to play. So for him to have that pec injury, I mean, that's just very unfortunate, but it goes back to, what this offensive line and kind of what this offense looked like when he wasn't in the lineup week 5, week 6. Obviously Tua wasn't in the game as well, because he was sidelined by his concussion. But it's crazy, like when Terron Armstead is not playing on that offensive line, it's like a domino effect. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like the guy next to him struggles. The guys 2 slots down from him, they start to struggle. It's like there's something that he does. I mean, players have spoken about it, like just like the mental aspect, not only the physical aspect of the game, but the mental aspect of the game, like just knowing where to go, helping guys that he's next to and whatnot. I mean, Tua was sacked. I mean, he's barely been sacked since that return from the concussion. He was sacked 4 times in 3 drives. I mean, like I mean, I'm sure you saw it. I mean, there were everybody in the press box when he was taking some of those hits at the beginning of the third quarter. We're like, why is he even in this game? I mean, it was like Ole, like they just like it was just no protection for him at all. I mean, he had no time in the pocket. And the Texans saw that. I mean, the Texans noticed that the Dolphins starting left tackle was out. And that Brandon Shaw, who has played really well at right tackle, he's not as good on the left side. They took advantage of that. As much as important as Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 2 of the play calling of Mike McDaniel's. I mean that stretch, those couple drives, and really the entirety of the second half, like reminded you how important the left tackle is. And obviously, Tua is right-handed, so we say the right tackle is more. I mean, sorry, he's left-handed, so we say the right tackle is more important. But I mean, having a nice stalwart left tackle is so vital in the league. And the drop off from that All Pro Bowl caliber level it's a big drop off. So again, I mean, I think that if they were to play that entire game without if they needed Tua out there the entirety of the game against the Texans, like they would have been able to make it work, just because, like you said, like the talent disparity was just so much in that game. But I mean, in a game against the 49ers, where they have arguably the best defense in the NFL, arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL, a scheme that obviously the opposing team knows very, very well. I mean, it could be very like disastrous. I mean, there's very few. I mean, there's a short list of players I wrote that like the offense just can't afford, like they just can't afford to lose. Tyreek Hill is up there, but even if, I mean, in my opinion, even if you move Tyreek Hill off this offense right now, they're still going to be able to move the ball. Tua, we've seen some of the struggles that the offense have had when he's not in there. Terron Armstead is up there. I mean, he really like keeps this offensive line, together. And I don't know how one player's absence can have such a big of an impact on the offense. But he does. Now, the Dolphins are going to have a week to make adjustments. Mike McDaniel more or less said we can't call the same game. We can't call some plays when Terron Armstead and then also Austin Jackson isn't in there. So they'll adjust. But I mean, hey, 49ers have a week to adjust as well. And I think that, I mean, if he's out for, I don't know. I mean, they say a partial tear of the pec, you can be out for a couple of weeks. I mean, I think TJ Watt had that, and he was sidelined for about 2 months. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's a partial tear. So he might be out a couple of weeks before he can like really start to kind of play through that. But when you're facing a stretch of Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, we don't know if Joey Bosa with the Chargers is going to be able to play. But if he does, I mean, that's another guy you have to account for. And then the Buffalo Bills, I don't know if Von Miller's going to play, but they've got some pass rushers over there. Not having a left tackle for 3 games, I mean, that could be that can wreck your game plan. And I mean, to kind of finish my thoughts on that, I mean, I was going through different analytics sites and different stat keeping sites, and on True Media, like they have the pressure rates for each game, and I kind of filtered it for when Tua's in the game. So against the Texans, Tua was pressured 33% of his drop back. So every 3 times he dropped back, he was pressured. That was just like over the entirety of the game. I mean, I'm sure if you filtered it for when Terron Armstead was out, I'm sure that number skyrockets. So again, they'll have a week to make the adjustments. But we've seen what this offensive line is like when Terron Armstead is not in there. And when you also compound Austin Jackson not being in there, obviously he's not Terron Armstead. But I mean, if you're counting on 2 offensive tackles to get the job done and to try to have your offense run just as smoothly, I mean, whatever you want to say, I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you're just not going to be able to run the offense with the efficiency, with the potency, with the dynamic ability that we've seen.
But there's a difference, however, how you play, how an injury affects you when it happens during the game versus, okay, we know on Monday we're not going to have this guy on Sunday. And, I think like I said, I think there was a predictable, Dolphins knew they had that game won. Houston just doesn't have the ability to come back 30-0. And then once you lose people, you combine those 2 things, and you lose people in game. Yeah, there's going to be more. There's problems, and there's more problems if you lose in the game, as opposed to, okay, they've got San Francisco got a whole week to figure out how to bedevil the Dolphins off that side. The Dolphins also have a week to say, okay, this is what this is how we're going to deal with this, and you're not doing it on the fly, and you have game film saying, okay, this is what we didn't do well, the last few games, in doing it Sunday and when Terron was out earlier this season. So, um, that's why the second half just that second half doesn't concern me. The fact that they're going to be down guys going against a really, really good defense. Yeah, well, that's concerning, obviously. And I think we're going to talk about that game pretty after our break. But yeah, it's the two things to me are independent of each other, and sort of independent of each other. So it's going to be a problem, but the Dolphins do also have a week to kind of deal with this, or prepared to deal with it. And it, like I say, especially in game things, when you have to make a switch in game, suddenly, there's the work chemistry between the left tackle and left guard is off. Who's taking what, who's making what on the fly and during a play, and then the guard in the center, it's off. It is a domino effect where sometimes, wrong decision over here, or different decision over here. Now there's a different decision over here, or a wrong decision over here, and somebody winds up bopping your quarterback. So yeah, it can happen with obviously any play. It can happen with any player on the line, but obviously it's worse if you're talking left tackle or center. The guy who makes a lot of line calls, and the left tackle who's usually facing the other team's best pass rusher, which is the right defensive end usually.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they will have a week to make those adjustments. I mean, I floated some stuff on Twitter, like, definitely try to, maybe they should do less empty sets. Maybe have some more, six, keep a running back, keep an extra tight end in there. Definitely gonna have to chip Nick Bosa. It's definitely gonna be one of the bigger tests for the Dolphins, as we said, in this really the defining part of their schedule. I mean, not only do they have, a road game against the San Francisco 49ers, with the Chargers the following week, the Bills after that, and then they can finally get back home to face the Packers. But really, those three consecutive road games, I mean, that's probably the toughest stretch of the season by far. So we'll see how they adjust to the potential absence of Terron Armstead. Obviously, hasn't been officially ruled out, but it does look like he's going to miss some time. All right, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back on the other side of things, we're going to finally preview the highly anticipated matchup, like McDaniel back in his old stomping grounds. I mean, is he gonna get one up on his old mentor Kyle Shanahan? We're gonna talk about that and more, so stay locked with us. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast, talking all things Dolphins with David Neal. And as we previewed before the break, this was one of the biggest games, or really most anticipated games on the Dolphins schedule when the schedule first came out way back in spring. The Dolphins obviously hired Mike McDaniel back in February from the San Francisco 49ers. So when the schedule came out, that's one of the first things we were looking at. When does Mike McDaniel make his return to San Francisco? That time has finally arrived. He's set to meet back up with Kyle Shanahan, an old mentor, an old friend of his, who really, I mean, if you trace back Mike McDaniel's entire coaching history, you won't find, I mean, you'll find Kyle Shanahan, right next to him. I mean, dating back to the times when they were, with Washington, with Cleveland, Atlanta, and then obviously with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they've been linked together for, really like a decade plus. In various different roles. Mike McDaniel served as an offensive assistant in Washington, wide receivers coach, and then he held various roles, as Kyle Shanahan, rose up the ranks. I mean, Mike McDaniel did too. He was not very far behind him. Obviously, Mike McDaniel was the run game coordinator, kind of the mastermind behind the run game with the 49ers. He got the opportunity last season to be elevated to offensive coordinator, where he had a role in a lot of the game planning and some of the play calling duties. And now he's in Miami, where he's really brought that that Shanahan style offense, the wide zone scheme, the zone running scheme, a lot of the West Coast concepts. He's brought that to Miami. He's really put his own spin on it with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua. But as they go head to head for the first time as head coaches, I mean, I'm wondering like who really has the advantage. Is it the mentor? Is it the mentee? Obviously, Mike McDaniel, while he said, "I don't want this game to be about me and Kyle." I mean, he's really credited, Kyle Shanahan, really, the Shanahan family, for his football background, his football roots. And again, obviously he's brought that offense there. I mean, he said that he's essentially had run a version of that offense since 2006. So I mean, what do you think, David? I mean, who has the edge? Because to me, I feel like McDaniel has like the slight advantage in terms of like schematics, because obviously the offensive schemes are more or less the same. But I mean, he's less than a year removed from being in San Francisco, so he still knows a lot of those guys. He knows Debo, he knows Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he worked very closely with Jimmy Garoppolo. He knows the defense because he's been going against. He was going against them for several years. It's not exactly the same with Kyle Shanahan. While he might know the offensive scheme, I mean, he hasn't seen those players up close. He hasn't seen the Dolphins defense for several years. I think Mike McDaniel actually might have the head-to-head advantage in terms of like this individual matchup, even though he's the less experienced head coach. What do you think?
I think the guy with the advantage in the coaching matchup is the guy with the better players.
And who is that? Who is that?
It's well, as we were discussing along the line, it might be the son of Shanahan, and at the skill positions, you probably give the edge to the Dolphins.
Yeah, for sure.
So there you go. I don't think this is a game that scheme will decide. I don't, and could it come down to late in the game? Could it come down to clock management? Whether or not you go for a field goal or go for it on fourth down. Those are the kind of decisions that might affect the game more. I think because the teams run similar schemes, I think that it kind of comes down to which players perform better on that given day, and I don't think either coach has a real advantage here. I don't think this is I don't know that the one's going to outsmart the other. I think
you never know. I mean,
I think one might
pretty
make
smart guys.
right, but I that's it. I just don't think. But I don't think. I think one might make some better decisions than the other one does. But those are decisions that he'll make, independent of who's on the other sideline. Because he'll make it based on how the game has been played and how the game is going. So I don't see a tremendous advantage for either one. This is not a game that where I'd say, where I think they'll never figure out the they'll never figure out how to deal with X or Y. I I think in the expression of the scheme, obviously the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, even Gesicki and some of the other receivers express the scheme in a way that the 49ers are not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's going to, I think that early on will catch them off guard, because when someone is unusually talented and you're facing them early on, that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
And by the same token, like we talked about in the first segment, uh, the Dolphins are going to have to figure out a way to deal with the 49ers front four, and particularly Bosa. And I always like the idea of you facing a guy like that in the first 3-4 plays, throw either a trap or a screen his way. Even if it gets eaten up, do something that makes that guy think for a half second before he comes after you. And even if you do have to do it on 3rd and long and say, screw it, let's, or 2nd and long, do it. But yeah, so like I said, I don't think there's a great coaching advantage either way, and maybe it'll play out that one outsmarts the other at some point, but
yeah,
I don't.
It's gonna be a lot of body blows back and forth, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I just think I think it's going to be. They're just going to. The game's just going to play out the way it's going to play out, and as far as the play, it's going to be decided much more so by the guys on the field, and they'll make decisions based. They'll make strategic decisions based on those things, and some of those strategic decisions might be brilliant, and some of them might be boneheaded. So,
no, that's fair. I mean, this is such an intriguing matchup to me because this is by far, and I said it earlier, this is by far the best team the Dolphins have faced since Tua is returning week 7. I mean, you can make the argument that in this moment in time, they're the best team the Dolphins have faced all season. I mean, week 2, the Ravens were, they had some injuries on defense. Week 3, the Bills had some injuries on defense. Obviously, the Bengals, they faced the Bengals in week 4, but I don't think the current Bengals, the way the Bengals are playing right now, kind of matches up with, the early season Bengals. I think their Bengals are a much better team right now than they were when the Dolphins faced them in the first month of the season. But this is, arguably the best defense in the NFL. They allow the fewest yards, fewest rushing yards per game. Obviously we know about the offense and the different guys that they have, and it's like the cross unit matchups are just like fascinating. Like as much as Terron Armstead is going to be missed if he's not able to play through that pec injury, you still have to guard Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And frankly, I don't know if there's any cornerback tandem that can really match up with those guys when they're at their best. On the other hand, you got Deebo Samuel, you got Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk is a guy. George Kittle. I don't know. Like I don't know who is the George Kittle stopper. Who lines up and tries to guard George Kittle. Not only in the passing game, but we've talked so much about how the Dolphins, they need a George Kittle like tight end in their offense because he's such an impact blocker in the run game. It's like I was kind of wrestling. Like, is this going to be a low scoring game because both coaches know the offenses so well? Is this going to be like a high scoring game because the defenses aren't able to match up? Like I don't know. Ultimately, I think that obviously you're going to get something in the middle. I think that we're going to see some really good defensive play on both sides because I think that again, this is the best defense that the Dolphins will have played in months or in weeks, arguably all season. I think that they'll make some stops. The Dolphins, I was kind of surprised. It's like, damn, I forgot where Thomas Morstead was. And he had to punt a few times, but I mean, I think that they will have to punt a few times. I don't think that they're gonna go 5 or 6 drives, scoring up and down the field. But on the other side, I mean, I think that this is a defense that is, starting to put things together. They've played some bad offenses and they've taken advantage of some favorable matchups. For them to get a couple turnovers, a couple sacks, hit the quarterback. I mean, at least their confidence is rising a bit, and they're starting to think like, hey, like we're starting to kind of get things clicking on defense. I think against Jimmy Garoppolo, who is prone to make some mistakes. I mean, he's not always the most accurate. He is a guy that you can kind of fluster and get you to throw up some passes. I mean, I think that there's going to be some opportunities there. But truthfully, honestly, I just think that the loss of Armstead compounded with Austin Jackson. I mean, if you're looking at a situation where you have, I'm assuming if Austin Jackson and Terron Armstead can't play, you're going to have Brandon Shell at right tackle and Greg Little at left tackle. Because that's what the Dolphins did late in that game when Jackson left in the fourth quarter. Brandon Shell is serviceable as right tackle. I mean, he's played that position most of his career. But Greg Little, I mean, we saw him struggle on the right side. He's a little better on the left side, but he's a backup tackle. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And just that matchup, I mean, I think that the timing of the offense will be a little bit better. But this is a game where I think you're going to need to run the ball a lot better than you did against the Texans. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it without, with 2 backup offensive tackles. And if they can't run the ball and then they're in these obvious passing situations, Tua has been great on third down. I mean, third and long, third and short. I mean, he's great on third down. But when you play a pass rush and a defense front that can get after the quarterback like they can, like the 49ers can, against your backup tackles, I mean, that can ruin a lot. Like I said, that can wreck your game plan a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that on offense, they're going to be able to move the ball. The offense is going to be able to move the ball. But those offensive line issues are going to just be just a little too much to overcome. And on the other side of the ball, I think that this defense has made strides, whether they're kind of like an average level offense. But I do think that playing a competent offense, an offense that has legitimate playmakers and like matchup problems, the ones that the San Francisco 49ers possess, I do think that they are going to be able to make some plays. And ultimately, I just think that there's going to be it's going to be a high emotion game. Mike McDaniel was already downplaying it, but there's no doubt that this means a lot. Mike McDaniel is as humble and gracious as he is. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to beat the 49ers, beat Kyle Shanahan. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan and some of those guys on the other side that were with him, they'd love to beat him and say, hey, like we loved you when you were here, but we're still good over here. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately the home team, the 49ers, get the win. I'm going to say 21-17 in a close, hard fought battle.
21-17. That's a good mid-range score. Actually, low for modern for an NFL game in 2022.
I mean, I think these defenses are going to make. I think these defenses are going to come to play for the most part. I mean, I really do.
But that also means I think there's going to be some turnovers and some short fields. So I'm going to go a little up, get a little higher on that. I'm going to go 31-27. Yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers. It's a close game, and so you take the home team in that one. Yeah, I think right now they're the best team in the NFC.
Even better than the Eagles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're better than the Eagles. So they're right now, I think they're better than the Eagles. Obviously they had their troubles earlier this season, and that's why the Eagles have a better record. And you can't play the Eagles cheap, but they're still.
They've shown a little vulnerability in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, you look at it and you go, okay, I get it, and you're winning and you're beating whoever shows up, but boy, I don't know. So they don't inspire as much confidence in themselves as confidence in their opponent, or that an opponent will someday, knock them off and bring them back to earth. Whereas I look at San Francisco and think, that's a team that's improved, that's been slowly getting better. So yeah, I think I agree with you that this looks like a 49ers game, but it is not a game for the gambling types. And I do love me a point spread and putting some money down on things.
49ers
I'd
plus
stay away.
it's
I'd stay away
49ers
from this.
plus 4 last time I checked.
I would stay away from this game. I would completely stay away from this game. I could see this going a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
And
it would not surprise me if the Dolphins win this game, just because I think that they're going to
yeah,
be up for it. Again, offensive line issues are concerning, but you still got to guard 17-10.
right. You just don't have to guard them for as long.
Yeah. You might have to
And
guard them.
and I think I don't know. I can see, the Dolphins have that explosiveness and theoretically the ability to put up a lot of points. But I also think the 49ers, they can put up points too. I think both sides have shown defensively that they can create points, score them, short fields. So that snowball can get rolling for either side also. So that's why I would stay away from this game, because if I woke up Sunday afternoon at some point and then it's like late in the second quarter and somebody said, "Oh, it's 24-0," I'd be like, "Okay, yeah." Well,
I would be a little surprised at that.
I would be surprised.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised, but it wouldn't be like,
there's a blowout.
"Oh my goodness, are you kidding me?"
I
No,
don't think there's blowout
okay.
potential.
Well,
I think these are two very well coached teams, two teams that are going to be
once that's
ready for this game.
But I think that once that gets going for either team in that direction,
they can start the snowball.
The snowball can start rolling, and then suddenly you look up, it's 24-0.
Yeah,
I think that can happen either way, and that's why I said this is not a game I would lay any money on. I would just sit back and enjoy this game for what it is. You have what I feel is the best team in the NFC right now, and you have another team that might be playing the best in the AFC, might be the best AFC's most complete team right now. And that looks at, so that's interesting enough for me. But I'll take the 49ers if put my head on the chopping block and make a choice. I'll take the 49ers.
That's what we do. Gotta take integrity. Got to put it on wax.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're both rolling, or we're picking. I won't say rolling. We're picking the 49ers to win a close game. I think we both think it's going to be a really good game. Last time the Dolphins did face the 49ers was back in the 2020 season, which was Tua's rookie season, I believe. The Dolphins smacked the 49ers 43-17. I remember Mike McDaniel pointing out that game as one of the games that's vivid in his mind in recent Dolphins memory. He's talking about the way the defense performed and just how ferocious they were. So maybe they can replicate that type of performance again against his old team. We'll see how that all shakes out. But regardless, it's going to be a great game, and I'm really excited for that. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, reminder to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, subscribe to the Miami Herald. We're gonna have a ton of content this week. Previewing the game, the Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan relationship. There's so many former 49ers on this Dolphins team, whether that's Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Trent Sherfield, River Craycraft. There's a lot of guys who are also going to be making their return to San Francisco. So it should be really, really fun. We're going to be back next week to recap another week of Dolphins football. But until then, you guys take care. See ya.